They called him the Crafty Cockney, a 5-time world champion, a working-class anti-hero with the swagger of a rock star and the mouth of a street fighter. He didn't just play darts, he dominated it, reinvented it, owned it, and then, just when he seemed untouchable, he lost everything in the most brutal way imaginable. This is the story of Eric Bristow, the darts god who was exiled by the very game he created. A man who turned pub games into £1,000,000 prize fights, but couldn't escape the demons that followed him off stage. At his peak, Eric Bristow wasn't just famous. He was feared, cocky, ruthless, magnetic. He'd walk on stage, stare you down, and dismantle you dart by dart. If you couldn't handle the mind games, you were finished before the first throw. Fans loved him, broadcasters adored him, and rivals, they hated him, but they couldn't beat him. Bristow rose from Hackney, East London, a place with more grit than glamour. He didn't have money, connections, or polish. What he had was fire, the kind of raw confidence you don't teach. The kind that walks into a bar at 17, challenges the regulars, and leaves with everyone's cash. That was Eric. By the early 1980s, Bristow was darts' undisputed king. 5 world titles in 7 years, countless TV appearances, sponsorships, endorsements. He brought style and showmanship to a sport that most people still associated with cigarette smoke and flat pints. He changed the image of darts forever. But as Bristow soared, the sport itself began to crumble. The British Darts Organisation, known as the BDO, was stuck in the past. No marketing plan, no real TV deals. Prize money was shrinking, crowds were thinning, and Eric saw it coming before anyone else. He knew darts needed more than trophies. It needed TV lights, big sponsors, proper venues, and when the BDO refused to adapt, he took matters into his own hands. In 1992, Bristow led a mutiny. Along with 15 other top players, names like Bob Anderson, John Lowe, and a rising star from Stoke called Phil Taylor, he walked away from the BDO. They formed the World Darts Council, which would later become the Professional Darts Corporation, or PDC. It was war, and Bristow was front and centre. The BDO banned them, blacklisted them. Venues were pressured to block them from playing. Bristow was portrayed in some circles as a traitor, a sellout, but behind the scenes, he was negotiating with broadcasters, investors, and advertisers, single-handedly dragging darts into the 21st century. Without Eric Bristow, there would be no PDC, no £500,000 grand prizes, no packed-out arenas, no walk-on music. He didn't just rescue the sport, he rebuilt it. But while the PDC skyrocketed, Bristow's own career began to fall apart, and fast. He developed dartitis, a psychological condition that affects your throwing motion. Imagine a boxer who forgets how to punch, a golfer who freezes mid-swing. That's what Bristow faced. On stage, in front of cameras, his arm would lock up, his grip would tighten, his release would go haywire. For a man who built his identity on dominance, it was devastating. He started losing, badly, then routinely, and soon people stopped being surprised. Bristow went from champ to cautionary tale in the space of a few seasons. He lost his spot on the tour, lost sponsorships, lost confidence, and worse, he started becoming the punchline in a sport he once ruled. Off stage, whispers started circulating about his drinking, his temper, his inability to let go of the past. Younger players said he was stuck in the 80s, both in style and attitude. Some admired him, some avoided him. Phil Taylor, the very man Bristow discovered, trained and funded with a £10,000 loan, would go on to become the greatest darts player in history. And yet, by the late 90s, it was Taylor headlining the events, while Bristow lingered in the background. The student had replaced the master, and Eric knew it. Still, he didn't walk away. He reinvented himself as a pundit. His commentary was raw, funny, and brutally honest. Sometimes too honest. He'd mock players live on air. He'd praise aggression, criticise emotion, and rip into anyone who didn't meet his standards. Some loved it, some hated it, but it was pure Bristow. But the truth is, Bristow wasn't just controversial in front of the camera. He was just as unpredictable behind the scenes. Former colleagues described him as brilliant but volatile. One moment he'd be joking with fans, the next he'd be tearing into producers, throwing darts at walls, or storming off set after a segment didn't go his way. He wasn't a man who tolerated compromise. He expected things done his way, or not at all, and that made him both legendary and increasingly difficult to work with. Even his closest allies in the PDC began keeping their distance. Quiet conversations were held about whether Bristow, the face of darts in the 80s, was becoming a liability in the 2000s. What made it worse was how self-aware Bristow really was. He knew he wasn't the star anymore. He felt the doors closing. He could see the game evolving without him. Younger players, more polished media training, scripted interviews, and he hated it. He wasn't built for clean-cut brand deals or sanitized commentary. He was built for chaos, for the smoke-filled arenas and the raw energy of the crowd. Then came 2016 and a tweet that would destroy everything. In the wake of the UK football sexual abuse scandal, Bristow posted a series of tweets that shocked the public. In them, he appeared to mock the victims, blame them, dismiss their trauma with language that was not just outdated, it was offensive, aggressive and cruel. The backlash was instant. Sky Sports dropped him within hours. Sponsors bailed, public support vanished, fellow players, fans and even former allies distanced themselves. Bristow wasn't just criticised, he was cancelled. There were no apologies, no comebacks, no redemption arc. For many, the damage was final. Behind the scenes, Bristow was reportedly bitter, confused. He saw himself as misunderstood, not malicious, but the media didn't care. The court of public opinion had ruled, and Bristow was out. Despite everything, he kept showing up at exhibitions and local events. Fans would still queue for autographs. He still had loyalists, but something had changed. The sport had moved on. The PDC was slicker, cleaner, more corporate. And Bristow, he didn't fit the brand anymore. Then, on April 5th, 2018, after a darts event in Liverpool, Eric Bristow collapsed on the street and died of a sudden heart attack. He was just 60 years old. The news stunned the darts world. Social media flooded with tributes. Some remembered his genius, others couldn't forget his downfall. There was respect, mourning, but also tension, because Eric Bristow's legacy isn't easy to explain. He was a genius who self-destructed, a pioneer who became his own worst enemy. He gave the sport everything, but couldn't escape the consequences of his own words. Without Bristow, there's no PDC, no Sky Sports, no £1 million prize pots. He built the foundation. But in the end, he was shut out of the house he created. Some fans still call him the greatest of all time. Others say he tarnished everything. One thing they all agree on, Eric Bristow will never be forgotten. He was bold, he was brutal, he was brilliant.